because I think everyone is very keen to hear from you, Gita. So you are a coach, a keynote speaker, an expert in personal development and leadership skills. Can you tell us how the idea from, High Definition You, your business, came about? Where did the inspiration come from?
Yeah, so it wasn't immediate, I'll tell you that much. For any of you that are watching, that however long you're into your business journey, it wasn't something that I thought about straight away, actually, because I'd spent 15 years in banking. And when I started my business, it wasn't really with the intention that it was going to be anything more than one client. So initially, I didn't even have the name High Definition You. It was just me. I opened a company with my, email address and things like that. And the idea actually, as I went through, because it was, as you know, Val, in our conversations, it was definitely a roller coaster of who am I to be doing this, and how can I, why would anybody pay me to be a coach? What have I got to say about leadership development? Turns out I've got quite a lot to say, and turns out people will pay you for it. But the idea of High Definition You actually came from, now I'm not a huge football fan. I'm from Australia. Is anyone from Australia? Put it in the comments. Any other Aussies on? Let me see. And, obviously soccer, we call it over there, is pretty big. My husband is quite into football. So he was watching a football match. This was probably about 2 years into my business. And as I was watching, or he was watching, he picked up the remote and he said, why aren't we watching this in high definition? And he clicked the remote like this, beep, and it went from an SD, standard definition, to HD, high definition. And I could just see in that moment, Val, everything was clearer. Like every pixel was so focused, the colors were vibrant. I could see the faces of the crowd. The grass was super green. And I realized in that moment, actually, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking back to it, is that's actually what I wanted to do for people. Is I wanted to give them the ability. Your channel is so beautiful, Val, as it is, exactly as it is, your standard, channel that you've been operating on. But actually, how can we get you, if and when you choose to really become incredibly focused so that your messaging and who you are in the world is really vibrant and memorable, just like that high definition? How can the Val channel be high definition? So that was when High Definition You was born. And, it still went on a roller coaster and continues to, but it started to give me more a sense of who am I in the world and what am I bringing into it, right?
Yeah, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And it's almost like, if I'm not wrong, working to get the best version of yourself, really.
Exactly. And understanding, and this has been a key shift, and I'm sure we'll talk about it for me, is that there is no one outside of me that has that remote control. Right. Yeah. So in my own leadership journey, I'd had leaders and managers, now we have our own businesses. Normally we're the boss. And then there's this sense of, well, who's going to help me to be the best version of myself? When actually the liberating thing for me was, it's completely within me. The remote control, if you will, to keep the analogy going, is completely within me at any given time. My only role is to stay in that place of understanding, of what I call the understanding of how it is that I create my reality.
And let's talk a bit more about that, because you mentioned, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, and, the different stages of our own, journey with mental health. But as a business owner, it takes a whole different meaning, and it's another world of mental health and how you manage that. So you have multiple businesses, you wear many hats. So can you share with us a bit more about your own mental health journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a continuation from my corporate career in the sense of, when I started my own business, there was zero confidence. I had no confidence. And yet I had people who wanted to pay me to do things. So I literally turned down work because I was like, well, what if I don't get it right? What if I don't say the right thing? I haven't done enough research. I haven't got enough certifications. I haven't been in business long enough. There are people that are better at it than me. This kind of thinking was continually keeping me in this place of feeling like I wasn't going to be good enough. and literally turning down work. I mean, now when I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've turned down paid work because I didn't feel confident. And I mean, this idea of confidence is, for me, something that I've then explored of, like, it's just a myth. The C word, well, I won't swear, the C word of confidence is such a myth, but it was something that I wanted more of before I would do something in my business. So when I feel more confident, then I'll go after that client. Or when I feel more confident, then I'll invest in, you know, X. When I feel more confident, I'll, you know, do a talk for. It became this real barrier, and it felt so real. It felt like, well, that's just the way it is. Like, I'm never going to feel confident enough. And the thing with that is, this is where it's really insidious in terms of mental health. And I just adore Tide, other than, you know, being a member myself, for really having this conversation, because the insidious nature of it is that, especially when we're business owners, we don't necessarily have that community to talk to about it. And we don't want our clients to know we're not confident enough. And we feel like we have to, either people think we're confident, which is you're so confident, they wouldn't have believed it. So you start to then even feel worse about yourself. It's like, I should be more confident because people think I'm confident. You know, and it gets totally twisted. And then how does this play out in terms of our businesses? Is then from that place of feeling stuck and overwhelmed, that's where we're then trying to make decisions about, you know, investment, about strategy, about products, about clients. And it's such hard work. It's so debilitating that then the fun starts to go out of it. You know, I mean, there's lots of people joining us from all sorts of different areas, I'm sure. I'm looking at the comments. You know, why did you start your business? I would say, put in the comment, did you start your business to feel like you were contributing in the world? Is that, can we see if they say a yes to that? Because that's what I did. And then I started to get really stuck, right? And that sense of not doing it right, it sucked the joy out of it, right?
Right.
It makes it hard. And then you've got all the multiple hats. Yeah, and exactly. And we talk a lot about purpose. I think that can also be challenging, because if you feel like you don't have a strong enough purpose, then, you know, am I doing it right? Am I not? Many of us have got multiple hats, as you said. You know, I've got 2 little kids. Let's wait and see. They're at school, so they won't be popping in for a cameo today. You know, my mum lives with her. She's got Parkinson's. So there's this sandwich generation piece. There's this guilt that goes with it around, oh, I want to grow my business, which I'm sure many of, you know, our viewers today and all Tide members want to do. But at the same time, feeling guilty that you're not spending enough time with other people, etc. Not, yeah, it's like you can't enjoy all of the different aspects of your life sometimes, or I couldn't anyway as a business owner. Yeah, right. So Celia's saying, yeah, that's right. Started your business because you wanted to help educate and empower women.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And that sense of purpose and that sense of drive is really healthy. And then sometimes it can become, you know, the mental health issues that come along with it in terms of not achieving that, not doing it fast enough, quick enough, as well as other people, not having people to turn to, the community aspect, as I said. Becomes like exhausting, right?
Yeah. And we're also kind of a worst own enemy, in the sense that we're always harsher to ourselves than to our friends and family, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I sometimes when I'm coaching people, and you know, this term of inner critic comes up quite a lot, and when I'm coaching people and that story that they're telling themselves about themselves, and you know it, right? As you said, we're our own worst critics, is so negative. It's so toxic. And I'll say to them, I want you, if they've got children, I'm like, imagine, you know, your 5-year-old, or actually, Val, do you have a niece or a nephew, a little like child somewhere in your life, a little friend's child?
Friends' kids, yes.
Right.
They're starting to come up, yeah.
At like 5 or 6, I want you to imagine they're 5 or 6, and you go into their bedroom first thing in the morning, and they wake up, and you say to them, whatever happens today, it's going to be really hard. Like, you're not quite ready for what is ahead. Like, you think that you know what you're doing, but you don't really. Like, other people are going to see that you don't really know what you're doing. Like, you're going to try, but it's not going to go well. Imagine what that little person is going to be thinking and feeling about themselves as they start that day. And yet, that's what we're saying to ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
So I find it so helpful to just imagine that little 5-year-old over there that's waking up for their day, and you're saying to them, you're not going to be good enough. This is too much. You're not going to be able to deal with it. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to let people down. They're not going to like that product. All the things that then from a business perspective go through our head. It's too expensive. You haven't priced it right. I don't know why you really even thought that you could do this.
And by doing this exercise, you realize that that's how you talk to yourself, and that you wouldn't talk to anyone else like this, because it's just not going to be productive or helpful, right?
Exactly. And then here's the thing that we then sometimes do, Val, is then we beat ourselves up for talking to ourselves negatively. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to myself like this. This is ridiculous. I should be better than this. I should know better than this. I should be talking to myself better than this. Right. So then we even make that thing something to hold us in a place of where our mental health is being squashed instead of being liberated and realized for all of its wisdom, right?
You're going back into the blaming.
Yeah, blaming ourselves for not being in control of this. And this is where I get, and as you know, I call myself a professional possibilist, right? My mission with High Definition You and all of the other hats is to create 1 billion possibilists, not optimists. Because what we can get in the danger of as business owners is then trying to make all of our thinking positive.
Right.
Like, okay, think positively, Gita. Just really be positive ahead of this meeting with this client. Be positive, think positively. I wonder if I've done enough prep. Okay, just say to yourself, you've done enough prep. And it becomes this thing, which in and to itself is quite toxic. This level of positivity that we're expecting of ourselves and others all of the time. So the massive shift for me was when I realized, and I've been accused of being positive, is that actually it's less about, is my thinking positive or negative? It's more about, how can I be present in this moment and be open, not to the positivity or avoid the negativity, but to the possibility. And this is was transformational for me, this idea that everything is coming from a place of my wisdom. And that is the minute that I'm relying on a client liking a particular proposal or praise from a coachee about how I've transformed their life, which we do. But then what I'm actually doing, and this is at the core of it, is I'm outsourcing my well-being to someone or something else. And from that place, I'm never going to have mental health. Because I'm always relying on something outside of me. We've seen that play out, as I'm sure you have, with so many of your members, in terms of the uncertainty of the virus and what it will do to my business. And from that place, we're continually making decisions about how we build our business or what we do with our business from a place of, it's outside of me. When in fact, there is nothing outside of me. And I know that this might be a shock to some people, is that there is actually nothing outside of me that can make me feel a certain way.
Because you are the one deciding of that. Right.
The feeling is generated from one place and one place only. And that's from my thinking. And when people are like, but it's not, then what I would say to you is just test it. All I want to do is plant some seeds around possibilities of, is it possible actually that no one can make me feel a certain way? No thing, no amount of money in my Tide business account can make me feel a certain way. Just test it and see, because there will be a time where, well, let me say this to you, Val. I want you to feel stressed right now.
Okay.
Feel really, really stressed, like feel stressed.
Yep.
Can you feel stressed right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you need to do to feel stressed right now?
Oh, I just need to think about an entire to-do list that is too big to achieve in one day and me wanting to get it done today.
Yeah.
That's stress.
So can you hear the key phrase that you used was, I just need to think about,
Mm-hmm.
The feeling comes from the thinking.
Right.
And the thinking only comes from one place. It's not me making you think that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the feeling and the test for this for me is, have you ever felt afraid or stressed and there wasn't another human being around you?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the other human beings.
Yeah, it's coming from within.
It's coming completely from within. It's like that movie. Did you ever see Scream? I'm really dating myself now, but did you ever see that film Scream?
Yes, it traumatized me. Yes.
I know, right? And that, it's like they're not going to kill Drew Barrymore in the first scene, are they? But she's on the phone, right? And she's terrified because this guy is threatening her and saying all these awful things, and she's talking to the police, and it's before mobile phones, and she clicks from the threatening voice to the police, and this is what they say: the call is coming from inside the house. And it's like, oh my God, and she knows she's done for. That's how I, when I'm getting still, as I do, up into all of the thinking about something, I'm like, oh my gosh, the call is coming from inside the house. So for example, I had a client recently who started, paid her deposit, ready to go, and 2 days later I got an email saying, oh, I'm not sure about the money. It's a big investment. I'm not sure I'm ready yet. Now, old me, without this sense of strong well-being and understanding that the call is coming from inside the house, would have gone straight to, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? I should have had like a better onboarding process. Did I charge too much? Maybe I need to offer a lower end product. When I realized, and it was would have been tight on, and which it was momentarily, on my chest, right? Does anybody else have that, where it's become, you get it, right? It's like, oh,
yeah.
But actually now, since my own transformation, it sounds like, biblical or something, but since my own transformation a couple of years ago, to really understanding how I create my reality from a place of mental well-being, I was able to just be present in that moment and open to the possibility that this was happening for me, not to me.
Right.
Right.
And that's the shift, right? It's the shift of how you see the situation. Yeah,
because the situation doesn't change. The client wanting to pause doesn't change. The fact that there's a virus that's changing the shape of the way we run our business doesn't change.
Right.
Or the existence of the virus doesn't change. What changes is the way we see things. And the beautiful thing, Val, about that is that when we see things differently, then what happens, and I know this to be true, is what happens is then the thing that we're seeing changes.
Right, because you're just not in the same space, in the same mental space to deal with that situation, because you've been able to go back within, if I'm correct.
Exactly. That's exactly right. To what I call my wisdom, to what I'll say to, if you ask any of my clients, they'll talk about their piccolo, because the piccolo is the deep wisdom within you, Val, that you were born with, and everyone that's listening to this, that will never be born again, that will never be created again. Your uniqueness in this world, the series of cells and DNA that have been brought together in you, is completely whole. Nothing can break it. And when I understood that, that then becomes joyful to make decisions, to listen to what might otherwise have been a scary situation of, oh, okay, it's lost revenue, it's a client that can't go ahead. And what do I mean by Piccolo is, I lived in the States for a little while as a failed actress in LA. Talk about low self-confidence and full of self-doubt. Oh my God.
That's been fun.
Yeah. But they have a lot of marching bands over there. And, you know, there's a lot of noise going on. There's a lot of noise, just like there's a lot of noise going on right now. You probably heard a siren, you know, there's traffic outside, whatever's going on in your own background. There's always going to be a lot of noise, right, either in our head or outside, externally. But within that marching band, there's one instrument, the piccolo, which is incredibly pure. The sound of it is beautiful, but you need to listen for it in order to hear it. And you need to believe that it's there, firstly, as a part of that cacophony of sounds. And what happened for me is and what happens for my clients now is we listen more for our piccolo.
Right.
Because all of that noise is going on, but we're not hearing it all right now because this is important.
And because I'm fascinated by everything we talked about, and especially, you know, going back inside, find that place of stillness, listening for the piccolo, and to be able to better deal with those challenging situations that you face every single day as a business owner. What are your practical steps? Because I feel like, you know, your entire business is based around those techniques and enabling your clients. For business owners that are watching us right now, and please do leave some comments and some questions if you have any for Gita that we'll take just after this. But for the business owners watching us live right now and later when we post it on YouTube, what are your go-to top tips and practical steps for them to better look after their mental health?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that, because the practical stuff is so important. And as you know, I mean, everything I do is fed with a passion for mental health and understanding of neuroscience, like what's actually going on in my brain. I mean, I walk around and like, how could you not be fascinated with those 100 trillion neural pathways? So practically, what can we do in order to rewire our brain, right? To have this mental health. So there's the wisdom, I always call it, you know, that sense of the meta piece. And then practically some of the ways that this plays out is we spend is noticing when we're spending time in what I call our BMW. So slight swearing of bitching, moaning and whinging. Or the second level in the high definition methodology is blaming, manipulating and worrying. And it might be blaming self, it might be blaming others. So there's a step one of noticing and bringing awareness to, am I in my BMW right now? Right? Like with that client, it's like, oh my God, I could have gone into, oh, I let her down, I didn't do enough, you know, maybe other people are cheaper. That's my BMW. And when I'm in my BMW, then I have no control over my reality at all. So that is really powerful in and to itself, is understanding and bringing awareness to that. The other thing that's really tangible that you can do is get very specific about what your BPO is. What's your best possible outcome? So again, to that example, like, well, my best possible outcome is that we find a way to work together. Now, I will tell you, as a result of being in this mental health and full well-being, what's actually come out of it is a product that I'd never thought of before, which is a half-day VIP day, because actually she wants an intensive. She didn't want a 6-month program. Now, right, that wouldn't have come if I didn't set a BPO of my best possible outcome is that we find a way to work together. And we don't often do that as business owners because we're in the thick of it, right? We're doing it, we're making it happen, we're not wearing all the multiple hats, we're doing our admin, we're doing our invoicing, we're delivering, right? Obviously where Tide comes in to help us with all of the kind of banking and admin piece of it. But actually, let me be intentional ahead of this client call. What's my best possible outcome? You know, ahead of this piece of product being released, what's my best possible outcome? Whatever business you're in, right? So right, you're setting your BPO.
Sorry, right before this call with the client, before this important meeting, think about the BPO, right?
Exactly. Best possible outcome.
Yes.
Not what's the, you know, go on, just do it, Gita. What's the worst thing that can happen? Then I think about the worst thing that can happen. And then I feel like, right? It's actually let me use my neural pathways to imagine, because we're still capable of imagining, even though we're grown up.
Yeah.
What's the best possible outcome, right?
Yeah.
I think there was a question too. Let's have a look. Someone who works by herself, how do you keep yourself motivated as a business owner? Yeah. Yeah.
The motivation, right? How do you keep that going? That's a very good question. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a really, really good question. So I can, maybe I'll put it somewhere. I can make available my top 10 motivation tips. So I don't need to go through all of them right now, but motivation, the key thing for me with motivation in terms of mental health is understanding that we are not, and the neuroscience of it is, we are not designed, we're human beings,
right? Not
human doings. Now, we fall into a world, particularly as business owners, of doing, and we very rarely celebrate. That's another top tip. Celebrate what we've achieved. Right? I've been 10 years in business now. I didn't celebrate any of those year milestones because I always wanted to do more, which is a wondrous quality, which is why we're entrepreneurs, because we're creators. But actually understanding that finding the balance between the doing and the being is where we can start to look at motivation. So I sometimes use the idea, or not sometimes, you know, the analogy that always comes to me is the idea of being a hybrid car. Right? So way back when we used to get Ubers all the time, you know, they're all Priuses and they're all electric cars, they're all hybrid cars. Well, we're hybrid in terms of the way that we operate. So our prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking, executive function, decision-making, social adjustment and empathy, that is only meant to be online, if you think about yourselves as a computer, for about 90 minutes. But do we only spend 90 minutes and then pause and refuel, go outside, have nature, have a pause? No, we're like, okay, next call, next meeting, next live, next thing. That's the doing. So that's the part of the hybrid car that's the petrol, right? Like it gets us a certain way along the journey, but that's going to eventually run out. So what we want to do is the other side of the hybrid car is inspiration. And that's the electric. That's much quieter. People might not see it. You might feel bad about being in that place because you should be getting on and doing things.
Right.
Right? But actually it's very quiet, but very, very powerful. And when we can spend time in that space as well, whatever that looks like for you, then what we're doing is refueling.
Right.
And we're still traveling forward. It just, and for me, that looks like, you know, time with my kids in the park where it's like, oh God, I've got to get that proposal done. That comes back to the meta piece that I was talking about being present.
Right.
Right? That's a choice I've made in that moment because I know how it works, right? Yeah, exactly. It's all about balance, which is an overused word. And I had it in my corporate career as well, as like work-life balance.
Yeah.
You know, if I stood on one leg right now, which, you know, like the amount of work that has to go into achieving the balance, there's so much around it. So a big piece for me is how can you really enjoy the moment that you're in? Bringing my consciousness back to the present moment. And I literally have it written down, is be here now. I don't know if you can see that. Be here.
Right.
Now.
In the moment.
Not like, oh my gosh, here's the like list of all the things and I need to do that and oh, have we gone over time and I have to get back to, and because from there, that's where our mental health becomes quite fragile.
It's getting overwhelmed, right? And not being in the right place to then deal and being equipped to deal with those situations.
Yeah, because the overwhelm comes from the Drew Barrymore. The overwhelm comes from the call is coming from inside the house, because what's the difference between overwhelm and overload? What would you say it is, Val?
I guess the overload is very physical and the overwhelm is more mental, but that's my interpretation.
Yeah. The overload is, oh my gosh, there's 72 hours of work and I've got 24 hours to do it in.
Yeah.
Then we can look at practical tools that we look at from a personal and leadership development perspective of delegation, setting boundaries, saying no, productivity, time management, calendar blocking. The overwhelm comes from a place of, I'm never going to get through it in time. I'm never going to get back to everybody. I'm going to drop the ball. I'm not going to get ahead. You know, I'm not going to get my accounts done on time when the accounts are due tomorrow. So you're already trying to eat tomorrow's breakfast today.
Yeah.
Like you're not enjoying any of the meals.
Mm-mm.
Because you're already thinking, you're simultaneously using your neural pathways to think about all of the things that need to be done. So in fact, you're not enjoying any of it. And from that place, it's called your sympathetic nervous system. That's when we're stuck. That's when we're stressed all of the time. It is so dangerous physiologically. I know we're talking about mental health, but the physical health,
right, of course,
that happens as a result, literally heart attacks that occur as a result of that. I mean, the amazing connections that happen when we realize that actually our mental health is at the core of everything. And the more I spend in what's called my sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress system, which is good, by the way, it's healthy, it's meant to focus me. Talking about motivation, it's like, oh, I've got this big deadline, right? Focus down, stressed, but I'm only going to focus on the tiny thing and amplify what it is that's important. But we spend so much of our time as business owners there. And if one of my top tips is eliminate the word stress from your life.
Okay.
To think about the dictionary of your life as a business owner, as a human. Because the amount of clients and friends and family that I say, hey, how are you going? Oh my God, I'm so stressed out. There's so much going on. Well, one of those things might be true, which is there's so much going on. The minute we add I'm stressed out into it is the minute that we take away our ability to create a reality coming from a place of well-being. So I challenge everyone who, whether you're watching this live or recorded, to take out the word and see what, just notice what's different. Just see what you see differently as a result of not using the word stress. And what else, what other words might it be? Oh, it's quite challenging. You know, it's very frustrating, or I don't know. I don't want to kind of put words into people's mouths, but once you eliminate it, there'll be a void, and you either allow that just to be, or choose another word to say, actually, what is, yeah, exactly. Vital menti donna. So the subconscious is listening, right?
Yeah. And it's about creating the possibility of a different conversation, right? If we do not have the word stress, it's just opening up the possibilities, as you were saying, right?
Exactly.
We're getting fantastic comments and fantastic questions. And I'm just reading one, which is it normal to not be stressed even when things are going downwards? What do you think, Gita?
So, I mean, firstly, this idea of normal
yes,
becomes a thing of like, what is normal and who is it normal to would be where I'd want you to start to unpick some of your thinking. Is it normal not to feel stressed when things are going downhill? So what is normal would be the first thing. Oh, because some people might, and think about the same situation happening to two different people. So for example, I do quite a lot of speaking engagements. It's normal for me to love and enjoy those. If I asked you to talk to 200 partners at EY, what would be your normal? The event is the same. The normal is different. So spend some time looking at that. What's the downwards spiral would be the other piece. Is that becomes, again, very subjective. Is that because you don't have enough clients, that, someone just left your team, you got a bad review, you didn't get your accounts in on time? What is the downward spiral? Because this is also where we get to play and understand that actually when I'm able to see things through this lens of being a possibilist, when I'm able to see things from this understanding that I create my reality from a place of my piccolo, then what might have seemed like a downward spiral is in fact just events unfolding and my level of thinking processing it far, far away from my piccolo. And what does that look like tangibly is we're trying to predict what's going to happen. So this is what's going to happen if I don't get that done. This is what's not going to happen if that client doesn't say yes. So to answer the question, is it normal to not feel stress when things are looking downwards, is there's 3 elements of that. And guess what? You get to decide. You get to decide what's normal without a level of self-judgment, with a level of surrender and detachment to say, hey, that's okay. When someone might look at me and go, oh my God, you just lost a client. I'm like, I didn't lose a client. There was an opportunity and I have a new product.
Right.
And this isn't about positivity, remember. It's not like, I didn't lose a client. Let me reframe it to something positive. Everything's an opportunity, Gita. Because that's exhausting.
Yeah.
Right? That brave face fatigue.
And
like,
a bit of toxic positivity as well.
Like, everything's good. Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, it's busy, but it's good. It's good. So it's about, again, the possibility.
Right.
And that's scary because it's unknown. Just by nature of the fact that it's a possibility. It's an unknown entity.
There is a phrase that I really like, which is, I think, very relevant for entrepreneurs, is that change is the only constant. Exactly. And I think that's what being an entrepreneur is about, right? It's being comfortable with the change. We have a couple of more questions, and I want to close the time. So let me just. We have one. Let me see if I can have it. Yes, it's popping up in there. How do you balance needing to be productive with needing to stay sane and take time off?
Well, this comes back to the hybrid car and the bringing awareness and consciousness to, oh my gosh, I haven't stepped outside since 8:30 this morning. Now, you can get tangible with what I call downstream tools. You can buy yourself a timer cube, which I recommend to all of my clients. You can set a timer that's 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 15 minutes so that you stop, because our brain isn't trained to do that, right? Because we're doing beta waves, like. So you can use a downstream tool like that. Like, oh, there goes the alarm. I've been working for 60 minutes. Now let me take, and you can set yourself a 15-minute timer if you're worried that you're going to spend too much time being and not enough time doing. So that's a very tangible way. The step back from that is understanding why that's important. Because you'll never get the balance and retrain your brain, which is ultimately what we're asking our neural pathways to do, is create new ways of behaving. You're going to go, oh, Gita on that live, she said buy a timer cube. That's a great tip. I'm going to buy that timer cube. And then the timer cube sits in your desk and doesn't get used. Or the timer cube goes off and you go, oh, you know what? I'm just going to keep going for 60 more minutes. I've just got to get power through. Suck it up is language we start to use with ourselves, right? Like, come on, just power through, just suck it up, get on with it, be motivated, just do it. Well, Nike's going to have a stern word from me, my friend, just do it. We need to understand in our brains why that's important for us to have that balance. There's one thing to want it. There's another thing to understand why. And it's the why that actually allows our brain in that moment, you mentioned the word comfortable, to work through the discomfort of stopping, in this example, and taking a break, whatever that looks like for you. So writing down, why is it important for me to do X, is crucial in terms of any change that you want to make in your life.
Absolutely. So I think, it really resonates with me, and hopefully with everyone watching it's live, let us know. But it's I think it's incredibly valuable. We have one more comment saying that I asked because everyone around me was more worried than I am. Well, I think you've answered that incredibly well. Is that you know, it's coming from within. So it's I think
I definitely, there's a great opportunity there to bring awareness to how much, and this was me, oh Val, this was me, and it still is, I still fluctuate, but how much time I spend in my BMW worrying about what other people think about me.
Yeah.
And in this situation, potentially, I'm not saying that this happened, but worried that other people are worried that I'm not worried.
Right.
Right. It's like, should I be more worried? Like, everyone's worried. Should I be worried? Like, they're worried and they're thinking I'm weird because I'm not worried. So the amount of time that we spend in that BMW where our thoughts are consumed and the marching band is going crazy with what will everybody else think about this? And as business owners, you know, we are creating continually and it is from us. So there is a real sense of personal rejection and judgment. Absolutely. Of I'm not under a corporate banner or something entity. It's me as the business owner that's on the line. So the more we can understand and detach from what other people think about us, the more we can truly realize. And this is where you do get people like Elon Musk, where they're truly listening. I mean, oh my goodness, to call your child, you know, like he's coming from a place of pure piccolo and wisdom and listening to that. And the detachment from, and this is important actually, is the detachment doesn't mean you don't care about what other people think.
Right.
Or that you don't care about other people, or that you don't care about what happens to your product in the market, or that you don't care about the outcome of a client meeting. The detachment, and this was a game changer for me, is the detachment comes from a place of understanding, deep understanding, that whatever happens next, I am completely equipped as a whole well-being that cannot be broken to navigate that next thing. So from there, things like decision-making become faster, simpler, anxiety can drop away, because anxiety is coming from a sense of trying to predict and or avoid a future incident. Right? And depression, for me, when I think about it, is coming from a place of trying to change the past.
Right. And trying to control the future as well, when instead it's not about controlling, but exactly as you said, it's about knowing that whatever happens, good or bad, or challenging or not, or easy, you are equipped to deal with it.
You are a whole well-being. We were born that way. We will die that way. There is nothing that can break that. Nothing.
Right.
Things will happen to us. Trauma will happen to it. Like, not even trauma will happen to us. Events will happen in our lives. And I remember reading Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read it, I really encourage you to. It's a very small but very profound book. And this idea that actually our unique humanness, it's about a psychologist who was interned in a camp during World War II. He was Jewish. And what he learned through his lens of being a psychologist about human behavior. And one of the crucial things that has always stayed with me before I truly realized any of this was this idea that our uniqueness as humans comes from our ability to choose our response. So I even said to a client this morning, the formula is there's an event, you know, the client said, I don't want to go ahead. Then there's normally a reaction like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? I'm never going to get anywhere. I'm not going to reach that revenue target. And then there's an outcome. And the outcome is I feel crap. And then I take that into the next meeting. But difference is if I change that formula where the event is the same, but the R for reaction becomes response. So I open up a gap, a pause before the reaction, and bring my consciousness to it from a place of understanding that I'm a full well-being. From that place, what does it occur for me to do or not do? If you're a recovering people pleaser like me, right? Say or not say. Mm. And then the equal to the outcome, the O. Well, I just encourage you to notice what's different about the outcome as a result.
Right. Absolutely. It changes the whole conversation, right?
Everything changes as a result of you seeing it differently. So the client not wanting to go ahead doesn't change, as I said. But then I can't predict. Our brains are magnificent and they want to predict for safety. Mm-hmm. It's primal, but we're using the machine in a way that it was not designed to be used. Right? This piece about processing it, figuring it out, writing it down, doing the strategy, making sure we've got on top of everything is there's so much more. And this is not, do not believe anybody that says we're only using 10% of our brain. That is a neuro myth to be busted. But actually it's the being, it's the well-being. For me, to the topic of today and this week and going forward about mental health, mm-hmm. that we don't talk enough about, around how do I stay in that place for me of being a possibilist so that the thing doesn't change, but the way that I see it changes. And I mean, I'm half Indian, so Gandhi comes to mind, right? Like be the change, not do the change, be the change that you want to see in the world.
Well, that's incredibly powerful. And I think this is a fantastic way of wrapping this out, because I feel like this has been so, insightful and inspiring. And I know, even though I don't have my own business, I took a lot away from it. So hopefully all the small business owners as well watching us live. Gita, is there a last thing you wanted to maybe share to wrap it up?
Yeah, the big wrapper for me that I would love people to really take away, if this is the thing that you remember, is how can I, in this moment, I'm going to get it, hold on, pause, wait for that, look, it's worth the wait. I have this behind me always, is how can I be more curious than afraid? And then just see what your magnificent being and your magnificent brain comes up with when you come from a place of curiosity and not fear, when you come from a place of understanding that you are whole and anything is possible.
Curiosity over fear. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Gita. That was so inspiring and so powerful. Thank you very, very much for joining us today. If anyone wants to hear more from Gita and about her business, please go ahead and click on her link, High Definition You, and we'll also share the live on YouTube, linking to Gita's website. But yeah, please go ahead and check it out, because it's some wonderful resources there as well.
Thank you, Val. So lovely to talk with you today.
Thank you so much, and have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you.